strange ways how to turn a man on emotionally. And look, those are going to be ways that you normally don't think about. And you always want to think about in metaphors. So when it comes to turning on a man emotionally, right, you want to create intrigue. Now, you don't want to create intrigue through playing games, right? And obviously, you're not want to turn yourself into a pretzel, be someone that you're not, and so on. And so that's why, for those of you who watch this on Facebook, I said follow the yellow brick road, right? So we can learn a lot from stories, okay? And of course, Dorothy was following the yellow brick road. And yellow brick road really being like, it's really like a metaphor. You know, it's a metaphor for our internal journeys, right? That we have to encounter, that we have to connect with, that we have to trust in order to, you know, have like not only trust ourselves, but also cause that intrigue, right? And so to me, when I say, you know, look, after I've been doing this, right, like helping single successful women for over 10 years to attract the right man, right? And so what I found is on that journey that it's oftentimes not so much about the action level, right? We find ourselves so much on this action level. By the way, if you have any questions, you can always pop them into the comment section as well. I'm going to keep that open here, right? So, but they find themselves on the action level, right? And it's like, you know, what do? You know, what do you say? Like, what online dating website do you go on, right? Like, which matchmaker do I hire, right? Like, what do I say online? You know, what do I say when I meet the man? So that's all action level. That's all lovely, right? But that's not actually following the yellow brick road, right? Because like the yellow brick road is actually, it's like internal, right? And so that actually means that you have to be willing to move to what's called the transformational level, right? You actually have to be willing to move to the energetic level, you know? So in the Bible, we're talking a lot about the gifts of the spirit, right? And so also known as clear cognizance, clairvoyance, and all the things, right? So it's just really like the gifts of knowledge or the gifts of healing or the gifts of prophecy. So you want to really identify, okay, so what is my unique gift, right? And alone that's why you can't compare yourself to your neighbor, to your girlfriend, right? To the woman who sits next to you at the restaurant or the bar and you think like who has like better chances than you, right? Because you have a totally different, what I call energetic constitution. You have a totally different wounding constitution, right? You have a totally different gift constitution. And so only certain men will resonate with that, right? And so that has like nothing to do with like what's happening with the woman next to you, right? Like that would be true if you were to compare it on an animal level, on a like primal level, okay? And so, you know, but you're not really resonating with a man, as the women that come to me, at least, like they're not connecting with men on a primal level, right? I mean, that's one level, but that's not the ultimate level, right? But you're actually like really creating this intrigue that we talk about, where man is really turned on by you emotionally through the energetic level, right? And so now what does it take for you to actually understand, like, okay, what is my unique gifts, right? Like, what is it, you know? As one example is like, if I only had a heart, if I only had a brain, if I only had, right? And it's funny because in the Bible, we actually say, you know, somebody is the nose, somebody is the eyes, somebody is the mouth. And so that's the same idea, right? Like identify like, what is it that you do have? So instead of like looking at like, if I only had a heart, right? So if I only was more empathic, or if I was only more like emotional, or if I was only, but I'm not, okay? So you're just not, okay? You're like maybe much more intellectual, and you're more clear knowing, right? You have like gift of knowledge, right? You just like know. Right? You can organize and structure things like really fast, you know, and somebody else who is like, it's like extremely like compassionate and is like really loving and can make friends with a wall may say, well, if I only had a brain, right? And it's like, well, like you have a heart, you know what I mean? So that's your gift, you know? And I'm not saying that you can't have a heart and a brain or whatever, right? But the point is that the man who's actually designed for you is actually going to be the complement for that, right? So if you have like an extraordinary ability, so for example, in the marriage that my husband and I have, like I'm definitely the one who makes more friends with the wall. Wherever I go, I can just gonna phone with somebody and feel like I've talked to them and like forever. You know what I mean? And my husband is really good with systems. Like he's an extraordinary system builder. He's an extraordinary, like almost like a business alchemist, so to say, right? So brilliant, you know, to the degree that I just never could be. So he's like massively big picture, right? And so that's like something, some people are more transpersonal, some people are more interpersonal. So there's so much that goes into this, right? And so when you actually understand, this is like a strange way, right? To actually turn it around, because you actually have to understand like, okay, what is my wheelhouse and what's not my wheelhouse, right? And you have to be willing, hey, this is not my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? And it's funny, you know, back in the day, when I was younger, I was really struggling with, let's say, my breast size, okay? And so, you know, I had like my girlfriends who had like bra size D and whatnot, you know? And so after a while, I was like, oh, this is so perfect because it's like gonna be a filter, right? So men who are like just really focused on that primal level, right? They'll be like really drawn to my girlfriend because they're really looking for like the big breasts and all the things, right? And the sexual attributes. And men who are drawn to me, they're going to be more the transformational level, right? And the emotional level. So that was actually like a great filter for me, right? Like I didn't attract superficial men into my life, you know, because of that reason. So, hey, that was actually like a fantastic gift. So where can you actually say what you call yourself, what's like a shortcoming for you, right? Where you're actually like, oh, this is actually like not a physical attribute that I'm proud of. Like, how is that actually working in your favor, right? And so that's actually like the big piece that you want to know. And then the other piece is that it's really interesting in the end, right? When Dorothy's on her journey and she's like, well, how do I get home, right? And all you have to do is like click together your red shoes, right? And so the idea is to live actually in both worlds at the same time, right? So she's like, hey, we're not in Kansas anymore, right? But at the same time, we are in Kansas, you know what I mean? So we are still in this 3D world, if that makes sense, right? You're still in this 3D world, but at the same time, you're also in this 5D world, right? So you're here on earthly plane, but you're also in the heavenly realm. So you have actually like almost a dual citizenship, so to say, and two different dimensions, right? And then because of that, and this is what we've really seen when we did research on what people call charismatic, right? So because of that, there is this tension, this positive tension that occurs from you being energetically bilocal. You know, you're actually in two places at the same time. And so if you're able to hold that tension, you can say, you know what, like I'm looking at myself from the galaxy, let's say, you know, from outside of myself. Somebody just said there's no sound. Let me know if that's true for you too. If you guys hear no sound, maybe Jazz or April or somebody else can say if you also don't hear any sound, or anybody else who's watching, let me know. But in any case, so you're in two places at the same time. And then the man is going to be like, wait, she's here, but she's also somewhere else. She's drawing intuition from somewhere else. She's trusting like a higher dimension of herself, right? She's trusting, she's listening to something. What is she listening to? Right? And it's going to be like very intriguing to him because it's like, he kind of actually wants to listen to that for himself as well, if that makes sense. But he can't, right? So you're handing him this resume, right? You're handing him so this emotional map, so to say. Okay, and then that's what's really intriguing to him, right? Because he's like, where are you taking this guidance from? Because it's not a logical guidance. You know, it's not a sequential guidance. It's not a masculine guidance. It's not a linear guidance. It's it's like a feminine guidance. It's like, what is this? It's like, it's a circular guidance, right? It's like, it's an illogical guidance. Like, what is this? I want to find out more, right? And so that's how you actually cause for a man to be truly turned on. And that's why I said like emotionally, right? So not like, and then sexually, of course, you know what I mean? But emotionally and energetically, right? Because he'll be like, you call him into like a higher way of being. You know what I mean? You call him into a higher version of himself because you're living in a higher version of yourself, right? So to give you an example, like just think about somebody in your life, preferably a woman, a friend or someone that you've observed, maybe someone on social media, and you're like, how in the heck did she make this quantum leap, right? How did she just attract her man in like 1 week? Or how did she build her $1 million business in like 6 months? Or how did she what's that shortcut? Like, how the heck did she do this quantum leap, like this quantum jump? Like, what happened? So find a person like that, right? And I guarantee you, rest assured that she's coming from a circular place, right? That she's much more listening to her internal guides, right? Like that are on the yellow brick road rather than externally, right? She's here in 3D, of course she is, right? But she's actually much more residing in the heavenly realm. And that, of course, now hold on one second. What does that actually then mean? You know what I mean? So if I'm like, hold on one second, that means, and this is like crazy, right? And this is where you have to trust yourself. You have to sometimes do something that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like where people are saying, has she lost her mind? And you actually want to say, yes, I've totally lost my mind. I'm totally out of my mind and into my heart, right? Like, I'm totally trusting my body. I'm totally trusting my inner guidance. I'm totally trusting, whatever it is that feels like just such a resounding yes inside of your body, that feels like so certain inside of every cell of your fiber and inside of every cell of your body, right? And it shows us this quantum quickening. It's actually expanding your cells, right? It's almost like, what is happening? And you're constantly working on grounding, okay, let me ground this in. So it's like this constant, sort of surrender and release of who you think you are, right? And so this is tip number 3, right? Because so the strange way to actually turn a man on emotionally is not only are you releasing yourself, you're releasing who you perceive yourself to be to a higher dimension, to whatever that is. I'm like, I don't know, you know what I mean? But I'm just releasing myself of who I think I am to something higher than myself, whatever that is, you know what I mean? I release my identity as a mom. I release myself as the identity of a people pleaser. I'm releasing my identity of being a caretaker. I'm releasing my identity of being a daughter, whatever it is, right? So you're releasing who you perceive yourself to be, because only then can you receive the blessings that are coming. But that was not my point. So the reason why it's a strange way to turn on a man emotionally is because when you do that, then it's going to be so easy for you to actually release who you perceive him to be to his highest version as well, right? Because you're doing it for yourself. So you're actually doing it for him as well. And then that's the ultimate freedom. That's why I told my husband when we met, when we got married, with this ring I set you free, right? Because the freedom coming from I'll release who I perceive you to be. I release that, right? So you can come back to as something new, as someone new. You know what I mean? As someone, a new identity that you want to invent yourself as, right? Like maybe a different career path you want to take on, or maybe different character trait that you want to develop inside of yourself, a new quality, a new attribute, right? A new way of being. Like you have the freedom within that marriage to come into that, right? To step into that, to be that. And so those are the 3 strange ways how to turn on a man emotionally. So I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. what's been coming up for you as we're talking about the yellow brick road, listening to your intuition, as we're talking about being buy local, right? Being like in Kansas, but at the same time, also not in Kansas, if you know what I mean. Okay. And then number 3, actually being able to release who you think you are, right? Like all the different identities that you have given yourself, all the different qualities that you have like assigned to yourself, or you allowed the world to assign to you. Okay. So allowing yourself to let that go. Okay. And then because of that, then it's so easy for you to release that, like you release him to his highest version as well, your attachment to him, your stories that you have of him, and he'll gonna love that, right? Because one thing that Tony Robbins always says, a man will never leave if he has enough sense of certainty, if enough sense of variety, enough sense of significance, enough sense of connection, and enough sense of contribution or growth, right? And so the contribution and growth are gonna be like paramount if you're able, right, to release your relationship or the dynamic you have in your relationship, the dynamic you have in your marriage. If you let that go, right? And this is going to be so healing, especially if you're more, the women that come to me are usually more like in the anxious attachment style realm, right? So especially when you're more anxiously attached, okay? So this is like a big piece. That's going to be extremely healing because the anxious wants to always attach. And when you release who you perceive yourself to be to something higher, when you release the man and you actually see something wonderful coming back, you develop trust, right? You're gonna have such a deep, ingrained, newfound trust inside of your nervous system, if that makes sense, right? Okay. Yeah, somebody just said here, unfortunately, I'm anxious, but there you go. This is your opportunity. I just see Facebook user, so I don't see your name. But this is your opportunity, is actually to release your attachment that you have to this man. And that way, that man gets to choose to come back to you. And B just said, beautiful. Thank you, Antia. Release is freedom and love as well. Like, just so that everyone can see it. Thank you. Yeah, totally. So yeah, if you're struggling with this, if you're like, I don't really know what that means practically speaking, if I don't know how to implement that on a regular basis, I just want more support with that. I can't look from the outside in. Obviously, research shows with support, you go further faster. But also, the most successful people have, of course, coaches themselves, right? Coaches have coaches because they don't want to waste any time, right? Time is the only asset that we never get back. So if that's you, then hop on over, take my quiz at getlovequiz.com, and let's hop on a call, see if and how I can support you in helping you not only attracting the right man into your life, stopping men from pulling away, right? Stopping men from dangling the proverbial carrot in front of your nose, but also really attracting men on this transformational level, right? On this energetic level, because that's when it really lasts. That's when it's so fulfilling. That's when it gets so deep. And that's where men are really willing to grow with you, right? They're willing to step outside of their comfort zone. They're willing to do something different. All right, so I'm going to pop that below, getlovequiz.com. Lots of love to you, ladies. Mwah! And I will talk to you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.